Hello everyone! A few years ago I was at a mini fair or a mini sales exhibition in Reda, that is in Germany, and I got this little build here. You can see the homepage from where I got it, and it is a little winter house, and that was the ceilings, or no, the what you call those on the outside of the roof, the shingles. The little house is in 1:48, and I 3D printed this little man so that he fits in there, and I'm going to make this into a snow cabin. And here you can see the step out for this little house. So I am first making sure I have all the things that I need for the little house, the little build here, and then we will go start with decorating before we are going to put it all together. This is a long build, and I'm only building the house and the little outside plateau this time, and then in my next video I will start on the furnitures. But anyway, let's get into the build. I decided to go for this deep sky blue Vallejo model paint for the door and the windows and the window shutters. I think that's a word for it. So I'm just going ahead and I'm painting everything, and the window frames and the door you have to paint on both sides. The shutters you only have to paint on one side. Just remember to look out for what side you have to paint them, because they have to go in pairs. The thing I'm painting here is actually some icicles that is going to go from the rooftop and down on the front. You actually saw them on the build picture before. And I need to paint this white on both sides. It's a little fragile, so I am really careful with this one. I painted this I think 4 times, and the door and the shutters and the windows I painted around 4 or 5 times on each side, because the burning from the laser cutting is actually kind of going through all the time and again, and that's pretty annoying. It took me around a day just to paint these things here, because you had to let it dry between each layer and then come back, get some more paint, paint it one more time, wait for that to dry, and so on. And then when it was nice on one side, I had to turn over the windows and the doors and paint that again in the same way. So that took like forever, even though that it doesn't look like it right here. So 2 of these pieces are for the roof, and this one is the floor and the ceiling of the house on the inside. And I wanted to make the ceiling white, so I took my time and I painted this white at the same time I was painting the doors and stuff like that. And it again took like forever, and I had to make 3 or 4 layers of the white. So the 3 pieces I have here is for the house itself, and I made this page here with some bricks to pop on the outside of the house. So I printed that on my laser printer, and now I am popping my tacky glue all over one of these sides here. I'm sorry, I'm a tiny bit out of frame, but I am making sure that I'm placing these pieces upside down. No, the right side up. Wait, the right side around on my paper here, so that I have the pattern in the way I want it to be. I placed the pattern in the info box below. It was a picture I found online, and then I just changed it up a bit, and then I printed that out, so you can find the print and do it yourself if you want to. So I am gluing all 3 parts down onto the paper. Make sure you get the glue out into the corners so everything will stick down. I noticed this little thing here that is also going to have this brick paper on it, so I am just gluing that and placing that on top of the paper as well. There was enough room for it, so that was perfect. Leave that to dry before you continue. When the glue was all dry, I started with cutting out the sides here of the house, just using my X-Acto knife and a cutting board underneath. And then I'm just cutting along the sides here, carefully and slowly, taking my time, and the same on the inside of the windows. For some reason my camera was here a little zoomed in on the table, so I was out of frame yet again. So here I have the two sides, perfect. Now for the house itself, I am cutting the roof really close, but not the sides of the house. So just the rooftop here, going down along like that. And then I am cutting the bottom part, still not the side of the house here. Cut that piece as well. And then I am cutting out the door and the windows. I fold up the side pieces around the corner here, and I'm going to glue the corner in, but not on the other side of the house. But I need the paper to kind of lay all the way around the corner here. Then I can bend the excess of paper around and then place the front here on the table until the corner piece has glued on, and then I will be able to cut off the excess of this paper, because I want this paper on the side here of this piece so that you don't see the end piece of it when you're all done. And I'm gonna do something like that here on this piece here. So I am cutting the roof piece off just into the wood piece. You can see that here, and I just cut in the wood. That was not good. But I make sure that I'm not cutting off the side piece here, because I want that to be wrapped around. The bottom piece doesn't matter because that's going to be glued to the base. So I'm just cutting that flush with the wood piece itself. Cutting off a tiny bit of this so that I can wrap it around the wood piece, doing the same on the other side. And then I'm cutting from the corner and inwards in all of the corners on the inside of this little piece here. And I'm cutting out the middle of it, making a really nice shape here. I'm then taking my glue and I am placing it here on the wood piece on the side of that, and of course I am smearing it out so I have it all over this little piece, and then I fold over the paper just like that. I'm going to use my scissor to cut this paper really short so that it can go around the edge and onto the back side of this frame, but not all the way around the frame. And then again I am gluing to make sure it is lying nicely when I glued it, and then I just fold it around the frame. And I'm going to do this with all the inside pieces here, gluing it to the end, cutting off a tiny bit of it and gluing the rest around to the inside frame. Just putting on my glue and making sure I have it out to the edges, and then flip it around and let it glue onto the back side of the frame. After doing this on all sides, I am taking the outside flips here and I'm doing around the same thing. I am cutting it a little longer than the side piece, popping on my glue and smudging the glue out so that I'm sure I have it all around and on the edges, especially on the edges. And then I'm just flipping it around here, and I have a nice looking edge all the way around where you will see the edge when the house is all done. So I think this one was an important step, even though that it was a little time consuming. That's a hard word. But the end result is actually pretty good. So I would do it like this again. Now back to the front piece of the house. I took my paper and I loosened it. I got a little glue here on the side, what I was not supposed to. And then I'm just cutting it off, so I only have the paper at the end side. And I'm doing this on both sides of the house. So now you can see the edge is looking pretty nice. The inside of the house, I decided to use this paper where I have some wood pattern on there. And again, you can find a link in the info box below to the wood paper. And I'm gonna do the same, making sure that the lines of the wood is going the way I want it to. And then I'm just gluing these 3 pieces on there. Make sure you are gluing them in the correct way to the paper, the design on the paper. That was a hard one. I almost forgot the inside of the roof, the underneath side, the side in the house of the roof, because we want that to look nice as well. So I placed that on this wood paper, and now I am cutting out these pieces just like I did the first time, and I'm taking my time with this wood grain on the roof pieces. I made that go the opposite way of the house pieces just to make it a bit different. On the front of the house, I didn't cut this side piece here because I didn't want to ruin the paper we have on the side, so I just took my scissor and cut it really straight onto the piece of wood so that it is looking nice. And then I'm just continuing cutting my windows out. Do the cutting on all of these pieces so that you have all the pieces with the pattern that you wanted. If you don't want this pattern, you can do it whatever way you want to. You can paint everything instead if you want to. Just be aware that this laser cut thing always have a tendency to come through the paint somehow. So with the paper, you get rid of that problem. So I have this really nice flock paper here, and I'm going to use that as carpet on the second floor in the house. Or is it the first floor where you come from? In Denmark, we always call it the second floor. Anyway, we are putting the glue on there, spreading it out into the corners, and then placing that on top of the paper. And that corner was off camera, so let me bring that back in a second so you can see. There we go, it's all on the paper. Leave that to dry, and then I am just cutting that out with my X-Acto knife. It's a hard word today. I did not place the plate here all out to the corner because I wanted to make sure that I had the paper on all the bits and parts of this little plate. So here is the flooring for the second floor in the house. Now for the chimney, they wanted me to build it like this. Place this little piece here and this little piece here, but I decided I want to do it different. So I took my tacky glue and I'm going to glue this piece to the inside of that one with the little slant on it, the little cut off. I don't know the word for that one. And I'm just making sure that the top here is flush or flat. Then I'm taking the tiny bit one and I'm putting glue on that one. I'm taking one more of these pieces, popping glue on top and bottom, placing that here, making sure that the flat side is flush with the other pieces. Taking this little one and placing that in there. So I'm kind of building a square with these pieces, and then I'm just gonna let them dry. I paint the inside of the chimney with black and also the edges on the top and on the bottom of this one, so that it looks really dark and as if it has been used. And now where I do have the black paint, I am going to paint these edges here on the roof pieces with the black, trying not to put it on the paper at all. I want the edge of the paper black, but I don't want the front piece of the paper black. So I'm very careful with this, and I'm doing that all the way around this piece and all the way around the other piece. So now it is time for the chimney to have this brick pattern around it. So I am again just blopping my glue all over, making sure I have glue on each of the corners, especially the corners and the edges. And then I am placing it on my paper, making sure it is on the pattern of my paper. And I'm just wrapping it around and making sure the whole chimney has been wrapped with this paper. And when I'm happy with that, I am just letting it dry. Here I actually made the paper overlap a tiny bit just to make sure that I had the paper all the way around it. Around half an hour later, I cut off the excess paper around the chimney. So that piece is also ready. Now it is time to glue in the windows and the shutters. I'm pretty sure that's a word for it. So I'm just placing a tiny bit of glue around the window. Then I am gluing even more around the other window and squeezing that carefully down into the room for it. Because of the paint, it is sitting really tight right now, but I think it was working perfect because it was a bit loose when I dry fitted it before I started with painting and stuff like that. So I knew there was room for the paint, so that was perfect. Because you don't really want to put this together and then paint it. That will be so difficult to do. So you want to paint and decorate first and then put together. After gluing the windows, I then continue it with the door, and I'm gluing that from the front side just to make sure I have it lying right. Gluing all the way around the door and placing that where it needs to go. And then I am going to glue on the shutters of each the windows. And I'm gluing them on the way I think is right, so that it looks like they're actually tilting outwards. Yeah, I don't know how to say that, but I'm gluing them in like this. But you could glue it on the other way around. I just don't think that would look that neat anyway. So I'm doing this on all my windows. And then this piece can be put to the side and dry before I continue. So I've been thinking about the electronics because I want the wires to be kind of invisible. So I found this piece of a lollipop, the pin from the lollipop, and I shortened that off into the length of this sidewall. So I'm going to use it as those pipes where the water is running through. So for that, I first sanded it a tiny bit, and then I painted it with my gun metallic Vallejo paint. Yes, I wanted light in my house, so I got two packaging here with two light bulbs in there. So I have 4 of these. Then I have these tiny beads that I am going to use as a lampshade. And then I have this outdoor lamp that I like a lot. I got that together with everything else. I am gluing this little bead, no, that's not the bead, the little light bulb into this little lamp. I thought there was a hole in the bottom. There's not. So I'm just popping in a tiny bit of hot glue and then placing my little light in there and letting the wire go behind on top of this little holder that there is on this little light. Oh, that's right. I totally forgot. The hot glue did not work for me. So I had to take that out again and then use a tiny bit of super glue gel to pop this little light into the little lamp here. So here's that little lamp ready to be glued onto the house. This little light bulb, I had a bead that could not go over the light bulb, so I had to thread it from putting the wires through the beads and then pull it up. This way I'm sure that the little light bulb won't be pulled through the bead. And then I'm gluing this I don't even know what that bead is called on top of that, and that will be my light fixture or my lamp. And for some reason I forgot to record that part where I drilled a little hole in the wall for this light, the outside light. I pulled the wires through the hole and then I glued on the light on the outside of the house. So that is sitting where it is going to sit. So now it's time to assemble the house. I am going to use my tacky glue down the side of one of these side pieces. Make sure that you have it sitting with the window up and the paper with the stone brick outwards, because it's annoying if you have to take it all apart again. Gluing on the other side as well. And then to make sure it is stable and standing right while I let it dry for around half an hour, I am going to place that floor panel we made where we have the carpet on there. And I'm just gonna place that on top, and I'm placing it with the carpet up so that I don't glue that onto something by accident. And I'm gonna leave this half an hour. I decided in which end my wires will go out of the house, so I cut off a tiny bit of the corner in that end of this piece of wood that is actually the second floor. Then I mark on my house on where this floor is starting so that I can glue the wire up to that point. Then I decide for the 2 lamps that is gonna be on the downstairs where they're going. I want one here by the window, really near the window. So I am going to make a mark around where I want that light to be, around here. I want the other lamp to hang around the middle of the other window here and the middle of the door, so I'm just making my point right there. So I now got the 2 points where I want my lamps to sit. Now we get to the hard part. I have some very thin, fine shrink tubes, and I'm going to use that to glue onto the ceiling. So I can just pull my wire through and let a tiny bit of the wire hang down so it looks like the lamp is actually hanging from the ceiling. So I'm just putting my wires on that tube and gluing the tubes in place. And I am using my super glue to glue these tubes in place. I'm not shrinking them at any point. I'm just using them to keep the wires. And I am actually going to paint these tubes white later. I didn't have any ones in white, so I'm just painting them over so you don't see them that much when the house is built. So now it is time to glue the ceiling slash floor in place, and I am just placing my ceiling here, and then I'm dubbing my glue on there and popping glue here on these side pieces, keeping my wires out of the glue as good as possible. And I want the lamps to hang a bit down, so I'm loosening the wires a tiny bit, placing this piece on top, making sure it is squared and nice. And then I'm making sure that my wires are going out in the little corner I made where I cut off a piece here, so that the wires are going out right there. The last of my lamps are going up in the ceiling, so I want it right here, and I glued it down following the side piece here, so you won't see it as much when I place the roof. So it's just sitting loosely here right now. And then it is time for this front piece to go on, so I am gluing down the sides here in front. Don't glue on the first floor or second floor, whatever you want to call that, because that will be visible. And I actually turned mine the wrong way around, because I actually had painted one of the sides white, the edge on the side, so that should have been on the front, but I turned it the wrong way around, so oh well. I will have to paint that white later. Leave this to dry. To hide the wires on the first floor, I cut a tiny piece of the paper that we used for the inside of the house, and I just glued that on top of my wires so that you don't see them that much. It's a little visible, but I will hang a picture or something later so that you don't see it. Now I am gluing on the roof here, and remember to put the paper side inwards. And I'm gluing the roof on so that I only have a tiny overhang on the open side of the house and a lot of overhang on the outside of the house. So the lollipop stick that I painted earlier, I'm going to thread all my wires through that and glue that to my house with super glue gel. This way it just looks like there is this, I don't know what that's called, where the water is running from the roof and down the house. That's those tubes. So you don't see the wires, and it's all looking neat and nice when it's done. I cut a piece of veneer that fits into the bottom of the house so that there is a flooring in that house, and I sanded that piece of veneer a tiny bit, dusted it off, and I gave it a tiny bit of a Fimo glaze just to make it a little more shiny and more colorful. You can see how the color is changing by this, and I left that to dry. Then I am gluing my house to this round plate. I decided for where the house was going to be on the plate, drilled a hole for the wires, pulled the wires through, and glued the house on top of that. And now I am just painting the bottom here all white. I needed the house raised a tiny bit, so I 3D printed this circle that fits the bottom plate for the house perfectly. And I'm gluing this one to the plexiglass plate I have. That is a plexiglass cube I have where I want it to be in when it's all done. So I pulled off the protection layer on the top one, and I drilled a big hole in that piece of plexiglass plate, and I cut out that big circle so that I have room to get into the wiring and the contact. Before I glue the house onto this piece for the bottom, I am finding all my black wires and all the red wires and keeping them apart. Then I have this little battery thingy with a red and a black wire, and I am going to weld the black wires together and the red wires together. It is a little tricky, so I'm only showing you the black wires here. So I connected all the black wires together, and I was trying to keep them together with this tweezer, and that didn't work. So I found the alligator clip that I'm going to use in the end, because this one is not working for me. Then I took a tiny bit of a shrink tube and placed that on the black wire from the battery compartment. I'm using a tiny bit of my flux here on the wires, both from the battery and from the house. So I have flux on both ends here. Then I am taking my welding thread and popping a bead of that onto the wire from the battery box, and placing the wires from the house into that before it hardens. Then I just pull up this shrink tube up over my connection, and then I'm going to shrink that with my welder, but I'm doing the red wires first, but they were a bit more tricky for me, but I'm doing that the exact same way. When I had the red wires connected, I just made sure it was working, and then I'm just pushing up this shrink tube over the wires, and I'm making sure I don't have any of the other wires in the nearth of this one, because my welding iron is still really hot even though that I shut it off. And I'm just using that one to shrink the tube and make sure everything will stay connected. And I'm doing this on both the red and the black wires. I used a tiny bit of some electrical tape to tape down the wires here. You can use whatever kind of tape. This was just what I had on hand. And I'm just making sure it is taped really nice so that nothing will be ripped out of the house. I actually used an epoxy glue to glue these two pieces together, because one is wood and the other is plastic. So use some of this on one side and some of this on the other side of this glue, and then leave that to dry for a minute, and then put it together, and it will harden and it will stay in place. Then I glued the floor in place. Just a lot of glue and just a lot of pressure, and I'm sitting here like 10 minutes to keep the floor lying where I want it to until it dries. Now for the shingles, I am gluing that in place. This is just paper that has been laser cut into the shape, so I am gluing them in place one by one and making sure that these cuts are not straight across, so that they are separated, or what you call that, just like this. And I'm doing this all the way up the roof, and I'm doing it on the other side again all the way up the roof, and I'm leaving that to dry before I'm going to paint it all black. As the glue was dry, I just took my scissor and I cut off the excess of these shingles, and I just took my time with that. After painting it black, I left that to dry, and then I dry brushed it all with some gray colored Vallejo paint, just to give it a little more interest, because the all black was kind of not that interesting to look at. So I'm just dry brushing this roof. Dry brushing is where you load your pencil with a lot of color or paint, and then you kind of wipe all of it off again, and then you use the dry brush to brush it on. That's all there is to it. The battery thing kept falling out, so I made this little holder for it that I glued in place right here. I made a tiny wreath out of some pipe cleaner. You can use a green pipe cleaner for this, but I actually used some that looks like pine trees. Then I had some of these different decorations for the Miniverse mini make it mini food that was fitting pretty neat as decorations on this little wreath. And I used a tiny bow that I made. I have a video for that. You can find that in the info box below. So it is time to place the icicle here on the front of my house. I am gluing them down one by one with my tacky glue. This looks pretty good. Now for the little wreath that we made, I'm gonna glue that on the front door. I actually wanted to make the little garden around the house in this video as well, but this one took so long to make. I actually used 3 days to just put this house together with the wiring. So I am going to stop here, and I will make the outside in the next video that you will see here on my channel. I had a lot of fun with this one for now. I hope you did too. So I'm gonna see you next week. And I'm also going to make the furnitures for the first floor in that video. See you there, and happy crafting.